Okay, here we go. Today we are doing Perceptor, the IDW All Hell Megatron version. You can make out a little bit of the blue line there. Got the headmasters once again in the background. And here we go. I'm going to start with the head first, as I usually do. Hopefully you all can get a good enough view. It's a little bit tighter than that Grimlock and Hound piece, slightly farther back, but it should still be a decent view on the camera. Unless you're watching on a really small screen, then you might not pick up some of it. So I'm giving Perceptor a little bit of a squint, like he's, kind of got his eyes squinting a bit. He's always got like a thinner nose. At least I like to draw him with a thinner nose. Hello, handsome wretch. Thank you for checking in. Hope you're well today. I'm going to try not to lean quite as heavily on the straight edge for this one, but we'll see how it goes. Once I get to the gun, I definitely will be using it for that, but I'm going to try to stay away from it as much as I can, just for a different look and feel here. Oh, good. Yeah, Perceptor, it's one of those characters that when I was younger, I didn't really feel strongly one way or another about Perceptor. He was just kind of, I appreciated him for the role he played. But as I got into this, I was surprised at how much love for Perceptor there is out there, pleasantly surprised. It's really cool to see how many people gravitate towards him. Thank you for hosting Zombie Prowl. It's kind of like this kind of thick chin strap thing Guido gave this version of Perceptor. Alright, so that portion above his eye is all going to be filled in black. Some artists do a little split right here, some just do a line. I'm going to do the split. This is very Alex Milne thing here. I noticed a lot of the More Than Meets the Eye characters had this sort of crest above their eyes, which is a nice look. I like it. Alex, he's okay, isn't he? He's all right. His work's all right. go. That's looking pretty good. Let's give Perceptor a slightly rounded look to the helmet. The original was, I think, very round, but this one's a little more rigid, but still with some curve to it. And pretty much every version has these little side panels here that kind of jut out. Which Transformer is my favorite to draw? I mean, Jazz is kind of my go-to answer for that. I love Jazz for a lot of different reasons, as some people are probably sick of hearing. But, you know, I love drawing Jazz. But what I really love is the characters that have kind of big personalities. I like to be able to have their personalities come out in the drawing. So, you know, like Starscream and Megatron, Jazz, you know, characters that you can put a facial expression on and you really know what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And, you know, that would be their typical attitude is essentially what would emanate from them, from their facial expression. Yeah, not surprised to hear that, of course. As far as IDW goes, I really enjoy drawing Cup, the version with the Saigar. I really love drawing RC. I love RC's design in IDW. The version that I believe Andrew came up with, that was in the RID comic. Once they arrived on Earth, I really like that design. It's got the car kibble on it, which I kind of appreciated RC having an Earth mode. And of course, her facial expressions are great. Most of the times when I draw her, I make her look like she wants to kill you. That's kind of, I don't know why that's fun for me to draw, but it is. I like to draw RC's face where, like, you know, you just look right into her eyes, right into her face, and you're like, oh boy, what did I do wrong? Don't make her mad. Which one do I like drawing the least? Well, my go-to answer there would be Bayverse, but as far as real Transformers go, yes, I said that on purpose, and I'm trying to be funny. No, I don't want to hate on Bayverse, you know, but I totally get Bayverse and why it's important to Transformers, and I understand that a lot of people like it, and I would never disparage you for liking it. However, as far as drawing them, to me, they're not fun to draw. I want to draw stuff that, you know, really has personality, can emote, and, you know, some artists can do a great job at that, like Alex and Andrew and others have drawn really nice versions of the Bayverse characters, but to me, like, they were meant to be seen as computer models, not line drawings. Like, that's where they look best. Like, I watched the scene in the second movie where Devastator came together and kind of my jaw dropped, just like pretty much everybody else. But to me, that's not meant to be drawn by hand. That's meant to be rendered with a computer, and that's great. But as far as like actual Transformer, like print media or cartoon media versions that I don't like drawing, there really aren't many. I mean, I can get enjoyment out of most of them. I wasn't initially a huge fan of the More Than Meets the Eye Rodimus, but it really grew on me, and it kind of like from Nick to Alex to Jack, it kind of morphed and changed, and I'm kind of into it now. I really enjoyed drawing him in the Lost Light issue that I did. So yeah, I don't really have somebody that I specifically dislike drawing. Yeah, Bayverse did bring a lot of new people in. I'm not going to lie, when I sat in the theater for that first movie, I was like, the moment Peter Cullen's voice came on the screen, I had tears in my eyes because, it's not like now where we've had Transformers Prime and, I forget what other versions that they've brought in Peter Cullen to do, but for me, that was like the first time that I really heard Peter Cullen's voice doing Optimus Prime since I was a kid, when I sat in that theater and heard that voice come on the big screen with the great sound, and it was like magic. Just brought me back to being a kid right away. So yeah, I don't want to harsh on the Bayverse movies completely. There's a lot of cool stuff that happen in them. So yeah, it's just, as far as drawing them, it's not really my cup of tea. Like the faces specifically, you talk about Jazz. I love drawing Jazz. Why? Because I get to make him look cool. Or Starscream. He's always got that kind of sneaky, smarmy look on his face. Megatron always just looks like he's ready to kill you. And in the Bayverse, a lot of them didn't have faces. Bumblebee is always very kind of innocent. But Bumblebee, they did a nice job making him emote in the Bumblebee movie, but generally speaking, the live action Bumblebee like face there's not really a lot going on there. So at least in terms of like being able to make it emote and make it relatable, at least in my mind. So now that I've upset some people, probably, let's see what else we got going on here in the chat. Linkin Park song at the end. Yeah. Bayverse is very aggressive. Yeah, the Autobots are infighting. Which movie was it where, like, you had Hound? It was the first one that had Hound in it, and, they... Look, I'm using my straight edge a lot, even though I said I wasn't going to. Just forget I said that early on. Anyway, you got Hound and all those guys. They're on, like, the alien vessel, and some kind of alien prisoner creature, like, spits on him, and he asks Optimus Prime if he can kill it. And I don't remember the exact exchange, but I was sitting there in the theater thinking, like, that's not like the Autobots. Definitely not the Hound that I know. So, that was a bit of a turnoff for me. Yeah, Age of Extinction. There's always good in there too, just the effects. People always talk about the forest fight scene from, I'm getting off camera there, from the second movie. Like, that was awesome. They have their moments, but, they have their moments in the other direction too. And it does have Grimlock in it, yes. Yeah, Angry Dad 25/7. Yeah. Yeah, Prime was a big sticking point for me in the movies. Like, again, I don't want this to turn into a harshing on the Bayverse thing, but yeah, the Prime that I grew up with, and I actually hated this when I was a kid, but in the Marvel comic, he literally sacrificed himself because the Decepticons beat him in a video game, and the Autobots, or I guess the Decepticons didn't beat them. The Autobots just ended up harming a non-combatant character, like an innocent character in the video game by accident, and Optimus Prime considered that a loss and basically sacrificed himself, which, yeah, it's pretty stupid, but it just goes to show you like how honorable Optimus Prime really was as a character. So then, you go from that to give me your face or whatever. It's just a big change for me personally. And like everybody else, everybody has their Optimus Prime, and there's a lot of young people out there that love that Prime with the flames on the truck and all that. So, I'm not going to rip it. It is what it is, and if you love it, then that's awesome. I'm glad you got something in Transformers that you love, but just not for me. What's my favorite continuity? I would say that would be between Generation 1, and I would almost put Marvel and the cartoon together, even though they were different. They were kind of based on the same beginnings and trying to establish some of the same stuff. And it's just what I grew up with. I think anybody, whatever you grow up with, if you loved it then, it's going to just give you a hit of nostalgia that, you kind of can't shake. You hear Headmasters in the background there. I started actually watching episodes, and, they've got like the aerial bots and the technobots and all these characters in it that I, remember watching as a kid, watching season 2 and 3 of Transformers, and it's like, it just gives me that hit of nostalgia to see them animated in the same style again. So I'm definitely a G1er. I always say not in the negative sense, because I know that some people take that in a bad way. I totally accept other Transformers continuities, but G1 is just, it's like home to me. It's what I base everything on. But I've said this before too, I love IDW Transformers. Even before I started working on them, I don't want it to seem like I'm just kind of being a homer, rooting for the home team. But I really loved what they were doing well before I jumped on board. And I think, again, even in stuff I wasn't heavily involved with, I just really appreciate that take on the franchise. And yeah, I think that brought a lot of new people into the fandom also, just like Bayverse did. Some people that wouldn't necessarily care about Transformers kind of jumped on with like a More Than Meets the Eye or something like that. And it brought a lot of value to the franchise. Just a new take, a different take. I don't think that's quite an unpopular opinion there, Zombie Prowl. I think there's a lot of love for animated out there. I loved it. It was definitely came out at a good time for me. My daughter was young, and I could watch it with her, and I really appreciated the style, and just the storyline was enough. It felt enough of a connection to what I knew as a child, but also being new at the same time, or somewhat new. So I really liked the animated. I don't know if anybody saw the poll I had up on Twitter wasn't a literal poll, but I was just kind of asking people which version of Jazz they wanted me to draw, and animated didn't win, but it was in third place, so I'm going to do an animated Jazz sketch at some point. But I think there's a lot of love out there for animated. Sorry, I'm getting you all in the shadow pretty significantly there. The pencils on this were pretty light, so just like the Grimlock one, it was slightly rushed to get them ready for the stream. So I don't know exactly how much you can make out on the camera, but I'm going to kind of go off of what I have a little bit. But that should be fine. It's by design. So yeah, this week I'm planning to do a Perceptor and a Jazz. The winning entry, for those who didn't see, was Pretender Jazz. It was actually had the same amount of mentions as War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron Jazz, so I'll be doing a sketch of that as well, but for a full illustration I'm going to be doing Pretender Jazz, which I'm really looking forward to, him being one of my favorite characters. Yeah, a lot of the animated toys were good. I didn't have a ton of them, but let's see. I'll look at I have them all on a shelf up here. I've got Lockdown, which was great. I mean, animated brought us Lockdown. Blitzwing, who was also great. Wreck-Gar, Weird Al Yankovic, of course. I have Blur up there. Ironhide, Soundwave, Jazz, Swindle, and Oil Slick, which was kind of a unique design that I really liked. So yeah, I like a lot of what animated brought to the table. I did have animated Bumblebee, I should say. They existed in my household. My daughter was they were technically hers, and you know, she was very young, so Bumblebee was essentially played with enough that he no longer exists. Bulkhead's still with us upstairs with my son's toy collection now. My daughter didn't really take the Transformers too much. For a short while she was into some of the animated stuff, and she always liked the cassettes, which who doesn't like the original cassettes? But she doesn't really care too much for them anymore. Yeah, animated Swindle was great. You never know. They keep coming out with different versions all the time, so maybe we'll see Oil Slick pop up again somewhere where we least expect it. There's a lot of characters. I haven't watched a lot of it, but I understand that there's a lot of characters popping up in Cyberverse, which I was pleased to see the kind of IDW version of Blur show up there. That was a neat surprise. Most versions of Blur I see are like a take on the Generation 1 look, or something completely different, like what am I thinking of? Cybertron. Was it Cybertron that had a Blur? But like Cyberverse just took it right from the IDW model, seemingly, which I thought was pretty awesome. What other character did I see that was just like straight up IDW version? Yeah, maybe it was Armada Blur. Or, yeah, Armada Blur. Had kind of like those huge door wings coming off the side. I did have that one at one point, but I sold most of my Armada toys. I kept, there's a version of the Armada Optimus that I kept, which was, I forget what they called it, but it was like a darker blue and darker red, and it had a gold version of Sparkplug, the Sparkplug Minicon. And I just thought that coloration looked really cool. So I hung on to that. The same with Movie. I got rid of all my Movieverse toys, but I did hang on to what they call Night Watch Optimus Prime, which was like, wasn't exactly a Nemesis Prime, but it was like a black and blue and silver look, which I thought was very cool. All right. I find the weapons a lot of times to be pretty tedious. Blur's sniper rifle has a nice simple design. I'm going to just kind of get that done to get it out of the way. It's in the foreground, and just get that inked up. I've got Guido's design sketch pulled up over on my PC. Just taking a look at that. Make sure I follow it pretty closely. Yeah, Barricade was great. I mean, I marked out just like anybody probably did that when they had that first Barricade and Bumblebee chase scene and they both transformed. Like, that was amazing. Hey Gabe, thanks for checking in. Good to see you on here. All right, let's use the old template for this circle here. You gotta still lean on tools a little bit here. When it comes to ellipses, you know, I find if you screw it up, it's like super obvious. So you still gotta do a few of these with the old template. Sometimes I try to, before I draw the, if there's an ellipse that's going along a straight line or a couple of straight lines, I try to draw the ellipse in first, because if it doesn't quite fall right where I put the lines, it becomes very obvious. And you know, this way I throw the ellipse in there and then correct the rest later. Maybe correct isn't the right word, but you know, just make it line up with the rest of what's going on here. This one's a little bit different because it actually is raised, so I'm just going to kind of freehand that. Yeah, that was a great scene. Yeah, my son is a big fan of that axe. I showed him the you know, the original episodes, and he sees that axe on Optimus, and he's a big fan of that. Oops, let me put in another. I'll just make a few stripes here. It's okay if we stray a little bit from the design, but I want to make it mostly faithful to what Guido laid down there. I know he had a few changes in More Than Meets the Eye / Lost Light, but for the most part he stayed that same design that Guido came up with for All Hell Megatron. And this is kind of on an angle, so I'm just going to kind of freehand that too. Yeah, I mean, that scene was just perfection as far as movieverse stuff goes to me. I mean, it played into Michael Bay's strengths completely too. So that was good. So the funny thing about this here is it looks to be some sort of sight or scope or whatever you would call that. Although I don't see an end piece on the back of the gun that you would actually look into. Plus, Perceptor's eye is essentially the same thing. So don't ask me how this all works, but it looks damn cool, so that's what we're going with. Oh, just the old cartoon axe. We were he got a little bit of spending money from his grandfather recently, and he wanted to buy an Optimus Prime toy, which wound up being the Cybertron version that was from Siege. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The newest kind of tribute to Cybertron Optimus from the Siege line. But while we were looking at different Optimus figures he could buy, he kept saying, I want one with the axe, because we had watched the More Than Meets the Eye, the initial 3-part Transformers cartoon, More Than Meets the Eye, recently, and he really thought the axe was cool. I haven't actually shown him, other than Bumblebee, I haven't shown him any live action stuff. He's only 6, so even if it wasn't like questionable content wise, I might not show him it quite yet anyway. He's a little young for it. Oh yeah, it could be a laser. But with the eye thing he has going on, you wouldn't think he would need it. But it's all for the look. Oh, I'm getting some visitors here. Hey, buddy. Oh, really? The UPS truck's here. You've been waiting for a few deliveries. They've been delayed a couple times, so thanks, pal. You gonna watch some Headmasters, or are you still doing school with Mom?
I'm still doing school, but I really want to watch it.
I know, it's so cool, right? Well, you will? Okay. Don't get in trouble with Mom. Hey, Sunny Sides.
What?
Oh, I'm just talking to people online. All right, so he's got kind of a curve to the front of the gun here, but the kind of rounded barrel also comes out of it, so we're just going to kind of make that work here. Sorry about the shakiness. My cat is now walking on the table I have this phone mounted to, because my cat was just let in the room. So, hi, Nugget. Yeah, anyway, she's done now. All right, so this is kind of part of the risk of doing the sketch in not so much detail and just going right to inks, is that sometimes it's not going to quite line up right. So.
Did Nico tell you the news?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. Now come back up.
See you after school, buddy.
Come on.
He's How can a kid resist staying with
is
the
that why when you
headmasters?
came in?
Yeah.
Okay, you get to hang out with Daddy really soon, baby. Okay?
Yeah, I got quite a crowd in here. Now it's just me again. Just me and the headmasters. So I don't know if you can pick this up on the screen there, but the barrel that I had sketched out didn't quite line up with the rest of the gun, so it's kind of a little raised up, but that's okay. Should look just fine once the inks are finished. All right, so what have I missed here? Yeah, that's right. Nugget's still in here. Nugget, you want to say hi to everybody? Come here, Turk. She won't look at the camera, of course. She's just sleeping in the back on the back of my chair, so we'll let her keep doing that. I'm just gonna go full Liefeld and let it be crooked, maybe. Just kidding. Hi Anna, good to see you again. Thanks for checking in. Perceptor's got this kind of thing that, you know, like a tripod like thing that sort of looks like it comes out of the side of this piece of the barrel. So that's what we're popping in right there. Oh, awesome. One of these days when you're not working on you know, non-disclosure stuff, I'd love to catch a stream of yours as well. Yeah, Masterpiece Jazz. I don't know why they can seem to get the rights to every other car model out there, but they can't seem to get Porsche to cooperate, or, you know, I don't know which party is having a hard time agreeing on terms, but it doesn't seem like that's something that's going to happen, which is unfortunate. But you never know. Maybe it'll work out. I'm not much of a Masterpiece collector anyway, so, but I would definitely get that one. I have thought about getting the, what is it, Downbeat? Is that the right name for it? There's a third-party Jazz that looks pretty darn accurate. I've thought about picking that one up, but I haven't to this point. Ah, right, the war angle. Gotcha. I mean, I can't say I blame him, really, but, you know, it's just sad for all of us that know and love that version of Jazz. I'm just kind of winging it with the angle here. I know I've said it before, but I just love, I don't know the name. Oh, there goes my cat walking on the thing again. I don't know his name, but whoever does Galvatron's voice in the Japanese cartoons, I absolutely love it. Alright, so we gotta add a little something here to kind of make that make sense. Almost like he's supposed to be grabbing it right there. He's got a little magazine hanging out right here, or at least something that looks like a magazine, even though I don't think I've ever seen Transformers like change a magazine or a clip in their weapons, but they kind of have that look to them. Yeah, you know, a friend of mine has the Masterpiece Grimlock, and that is a really nice figure. I kind of messed around with that one, and I really like that figure a lot. I don't own it, but it's really nice. I'm sure it's super expensive at this point because it's I don't know what the right word is. Not discontinued, but it's not. They're not making it right now. It's already made. Yeah, Bumblebee, at least the G1 version, really isn't looked at as like a warlike figure, I don't think. So I can see how a company felt pretty safe, you know, allowing them to use their intellectual property for Bumblebee. Maybe IP isn't the right term, but you know what I mean. Well, some of the bits of this weapon are kind of condensed a little bit because I wanted to still kind of be on his shoulder-ish, this stock right here, but you know, I know it wasn't going to exactly rest on his shoulder, but I didn't want it to go over the shoulder. So I just kind of condensed it. You know, it's Transformers. They can do that sort of thing. Wow, 350. Yeah, that's a lot. I remember I was looking at it when I found out they had the this sort of comic book version. I don't know what name they gave it, but it had like a comic-y looking box, and all of Grimlock's black parts were actually blue, like the early comic books were. I thought that was a really cool look, so I was looking at that, and this was a few years ago, but at that time it was like mega expensive, several $100s. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. I've spent some money on Transformers in the past, but, you know, not a ton, and not unless I really, really, really want it. Oh, no kidding. You printed out a full-size, well, human-sized Jazz gun, huh? I'm looking forward to checking that out. Oh yeah, the Ghost of Starscream. I will admit I have the I think it was eHobby. They did a version of that. And that was like one of the nicest gifts I ever got from my wife, who I think then was my girlfriend. She's not a Transformers person necessarily, but she understood. She knows who they are just from being with me, and knew that the Ghost Starscream figure was a thing, and that I thought it was really cool. So I don't remember if it was a Christmas or a birthday, but she got that for me, and I immediately proposed. No, I'm just kidding about that, but she's a keeper for sure. So I do have the G1 Ghost of Starscream figure, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite pieces I have. Was that a Masterpiece Sound Blaster that came with a rat bat? Sorry, I'm not totally up on all of the toy releases. I love the look of the Masterpiece Soundwave, and I could see myself spending the money on that, but I haven't to this point. To anybody who watched the beginning of this stream where I said I wasn't going to use my straight edge much, I'm just kind of going on autopilot here, so I made a liar out of myself, but that's okay. He's got a lot of long, straight parts to him, so I'm kind of cutting myself a little slack. Just an early heads up, I am still going to cut this off around 3 o'clock, because that's technically when my quotation fingers, my work day ends here. I've finished with any of my official work well before now, but that's when my kids know that I'll be available. My son is waiting to play video games with me, so 3 o'clock is when Daddy goes back upstairs and we can hang out, play some games. It's a rainy day here in Massachusetts, so we're not going outside, we're not walking the dog. It's indoor activities today. I do have a G1 Sound Blaster from the Takara reissue line. I'm a big G1 person, if you haven't figured that out yet. If it's not painfully obvious. Those, even though they're so imperfect, the old figures, I just love the bricky blockiness of them. And some of them are completely brilliant too, but despite any perceived flaws, I just love them all. Yeah, this piece will be going up on eBay. I'm trying to do 2 pieces a week for eBay. It's kind of like a little supplemental thing, because I have my regular jobs that I do, which are kind of on hold with the whole coronavirus thing. But I'm still trying to keep up with 2 kind of random pieces a week that I can stream and throw up on eBay. Tonight I'll be putting up the Hound that I did last week, and the Optimus and Ironhide and Jazz picture that I did, I think it was a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to try to keep up with. Maybe throw in another thing here and there. see, I'm going to put a little raised bit here because I feel like it. Pardon me for just a second. I'm going to put the show back on. Yeah, thanks. I figured that Grimlock would be pretty popular. You know, I put one of the reasons I put out the polls. There's a lot of reasons I put out polls on Twitter to get sort of get people involved in figuring out who I'm going to draw when I have the chance to draw a character like this, to stream it or throw it on eBay. I want a character that's going to have a big interest, you know, that a lot of people will be interested in. Like, I love the obscure characters, but are a lot of people going to care and want to tune in if I'm drawing, I don't know, some trigger bot or something, you know, something less known? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I figure if I put it out there to people, it gives them a chance to kind of like, I don't know why people follow my page. If they just like seeing the art, if they like asking questions, I don't really know the extent of it. But I figure it would probably be fun for folks to have sort of a say in what they see get drawn. But yeah, part of it also is like, once I put it on eBay right now, like, I want a piece that's going to generate a lot of interest. Although, you know, I still mix in some others as well, just for fun. I'm not just here to make money, but it is a job, so, you know, I have to consider that to some extent. Oh, thank you. I mean, I figure things can serve like a dual purpose, you know. It's not all or nothing, you know. I definitely don't want to be one of those types that's just like always, you know, buy this, buy that. You know, that's not what I'm here for completely, but at the same time, you know, there's the responsible part of me has to recognize this is a job. So, you know, that's part of it. And, you know, some people really want this stuff, so it's not like I'm annoying everybody when I'm making it available. But I don't know. I figure there's something of interest for everybody, or a lot of people. Alright, so I guess this leg is the farthest remaining thing in the foreground, so I'll get that inked up here. The jazz piece that I'm going to be working on, especially once I figured out it would be Pretender Jazz, I think that's going to wind up being a print that I'll bring around if conventions ever start again. I'll bring around to conventions, and I think there'd be enough interest in a Pretender Jazz. I know if I were walking around a convention hall and I saw a Pretender Jazz, I'd be pretty thrilled about it. So that'll be one of the purposes for that. I like the peaceful music from the headmasters. I mean, if I'm working out the math, the head sketches always do, they do better than I would expect them to do. I feel like I want to do a piece sometimes like this that I'm really, not that I'm not satisfied with a good head sketch. I love a good head sketch, but there's kind of a drive to do something bigger, but whenever I put, I will charge a moderate amount for them, but then whenever I put one on eBay, it usually sells for a lot more than I would just straight up charge for it. That's the headshots. So, which makes me think maybe I should charge for it. But I also want to I understand that not everybody can pay, big bucks for an original piece of artwork. So I want to keep something affordable. So, I don't know. I try to find the right balance. Cup has a pretty good voice in the Japanese cartoon as well. I really like his voice actor. And the English dub is just so weird. Yeah, that's a good idea, Clock Fox. I've definitely done that sort of thing before. Usually when I make a print, I'll throw the original up for sale. I'll usually just bring it with me, and a lot of times somebody at the convention will want to buy it, and I don't have to pack it and ship it. Shipping original art is always a nerve-wracking experience because only a few times have I been burned by it, but it's always a little nerve-wracking because it's not like a product where like if I own a store and somebody buys a thing, like if I was selling action figures and I have a whole stock of Grimlock action figures and I send one out and it gets lost and I have to resend it, or it gets broken, I have to resend one, and I'm taking a bit of a financial hit. But if a piece of artwork gets lost or damaged, I either have to just take a financial hit that both parties are okay with, or I'd have to say something like buy at your own risk, put the risk on the buyer for shipping damage, which I wouldn't ever want to do. If it was just a product, I could just ship out another one, but when it's a piece of artwork, I have to spend the hours that it takes to redo it. So it's always more convenient when I can sell something in person. One of the good parts about conventions that hopefully we'll be able to do again one of these days. Yeah, Zombie Prowl. I'm going to try to watch Master Force at some point. I've got the DVD, and I did wind up getting my region-free player in the mail. So I'm going to try to watch these in order, which will take me a while because there's I want to say 30-something episodes per per whatever, per thing. Like Headmasters is 30 something. I think Master Force is another 30 something. I don't know about what's the one after that? Victory. I don't know. I can't remember how many episodes that is, but it's going to take me a while to get through them all. I do want to experience them. But I get the impression that Master Force gets a little bit silly. Oh, Mick worked. You've got 4 of those head sketches, huh? Yeah, I don't. And the thing about eBay and auctions is like, I don't. It's hard for me to set a price for some of this stuff. Like, a lot of times I'll base it on the amount of time I spent doing something or the size of the thing. But you know, as far as value, what's valuable to one person is maybe not as valuable or more valuable to somebody else. So that's one of the reasons I like to do eBay or auction style things, because it just kind of lets the potential buyers set the value. I never want to feel like I'm overcharging somebody for something, and I don't want to sell myself short as well. So if I just throw it out on eBay, then the market sets itself, and I just, take whatever it gives me. Yeah, shipping can be very expensive too, especially with international stuff. That's another thing. I like to keep it open to non-United States bidders, but the shipping also does get very expensive, which I try to eat as much of that cost as I can. But it's tough. It's tough how pricey it is. Let's go back up and finish up his little chest plate here. Trying to work, for the most part, foreground to background. I don't want to draw in something that I have to sort of cover up later. Let's see, this is that, so it's all gonna have to curve in here. And then of course we have this wrist right here that's in front of that. Again, my pencils were not super tight, so I'm kind of guessing a little bit as I go, or just filling it in as I go, and hopefully it all makes sense in the end. Another challenge about drawing Transformers is I was looking up sniper images online to kind of get an idea of how I wanted to pose him, and there was somebody holding their rifle with kind of, the wrist or forearm going this way, and their hand is bent at the wrist, which doesn't always work easily with Transformers, or at least the way I draw them. So that can be a challenge sometimes. Yeah, I have no basis of knowledge for Overlord other than knowing, what the toy looks like and knowing that he existed or exists. But so when he came around in Wreckers, I didn't really have anything to go off of. But he's pretty wild. All right, let me finish off these legs and get them out of the way. I find another reason I like to do this type of shot as opposed to like a full body shot is I find drawing the legs to be kind of boring. As silly as that may sound, like you can get a lot of action, personality in I always talk about the heads and the hands. You got body language, the way the shoulders are bent, all these different things you can do, but the legs are just kind of there. I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of drawing Transformer legs. So let's get those out of the way. Hi, Spores X. Spores X. I hope I'm saying that right. So Percy has these like little tank treads here. For whatever reason, when you can see the kind of roundish portion inside there, I like to have them alternating. I don't know why. I just feel like it gives it a little personality. I feel like I'm saying that word a lot, but it's just the way it is. Alright, so I'd like to have the treads kind of break and bend up here. Not be completely rigid, but let's see, where were my lines initially? I want to have a break here, here, here. So that would put one about here and about here. So it's not exactly even, but that's okay. We'll just darken that out. There's another ellipse here that I'll just freehand in. Make that hollow. Alright, let's throw these treads in. The front angle of them. We'll really kind of muck these up towards the end here. The time we got is about 2:30, so we got about a half hour left. A bit of a late start today. Okay, Spores. Yeah, I don't have the my PC. I don't really. It's pretty old, and I'm honestly surprised it still even works at this point. So I don't have a good way to broadcast from the PC. I'm still running Windows Vista on it. That's how old it is, and so that's probably not going to happen. Once I get more familiar with what do you call it, Procreate on my iPad, and work out the kinks on hooking that up with a Twitch stream, I think I can do some of my sketch phase that way. But for now, no, I just did the sketch beforehand on my PC and printed it out before the stream. But speaking of sketching, I do think at some point, and speaking of head sketches earlier, I will do a bit. I can't remember who was here for the last one. At the end, I had a little extra time after I finished up Hound, and just kind of like did a little speed sketch, which I don't remember how long it took. It was probably like less than 10 minutes. I just did a head sketch of Skids, and I thought that was pretty fun. I think I'll do more of that. So that would just be a sketch on paper, just sketch it out, and either leave it just pencil or maybe ink it in. Not sure what I would want to do, but I may do that for a future stream because, you know, I'm sure some of you are not tired of seeing inking happen, but maybe some of you are, and it'd be good to switch it up either way. And maybe 1 week, instead of doing a couple of larger pieces up online, I can do a whole bunch of smaller ones. Ultra Magnus or Whirl, yeah, that could happen. I'm a fan of Nightbeat as well. You know, I can definitely see doing any of those characters. We're not doing it quite yet, Spores, but at some point I think we'll do that, because it might get a bit overwhelming for me, but I think it would be fun. I don't know how many I could fit into like a 2-hour stream, or maybe I could do like a 3-hour stream at some point. One of my first streams I did was 3 hours. So I'll have to try to figure out the logistics of that. But I mean, headshots, I could get a lot of those more obscure characters in, you know. Dollar emoji, yeah. I don't know if they have those on here, but I can't remember if I've ever done an alternators commission. I feel like I must have, back when they were really popular. Somebody must have asked for one, but I can't really remember for sure. So I don't know if you can tell from the light sketch underneath what I'm doing here, but I do have him sort of like on top of a building. You're gonna have some tops of buildings in the background to kind of insinuate that he's up on a roof somewhere, either having just taken out some target or he's about to. So I think that should be a fun look. Oh my. Yeah, drink and draw like that would be kind of fun. No reference, just draw them. Once you get outside the basic, like, Generation 1 characters, for me, that would be a bit of a challenge. And could lead to some pretty fun results. Getting all this off camera, aren't I? So you've got a whole wall of Jazz and a wall of Prowl. Yeah, the Grimlock piece finished up around 250, I think, which that's more than, like, if I would have done a commission of Grimlock, I probably wouldn't have gone as crazy with the background. So it would have been a little bit less content, but, you know, it would have been, I wouldn't have charged $250 for it, but being that I put a lot of extra effort into the background, I think that's, well, plus Grimlock being a popular character, but I think that kind of helped drive the price up a little bit. Plus, like I said, value is really like, a subjective thing, you know. Like again, I've seen some of these Jim Lee pieces, and I don't claim to be anywhere in that guy's league, but he's putting up pieces for his charity auctions, and they're going for like 10,000 plus, some of them. So, you know, what's a piece of art on a 9x12 piece of paper worth? Who knows? It's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it. All right, let's take care of these little, I don't know what these roundish pieces are on the outside of his arm, but I'm just going to get him out of the way here. I think that will be about right. Cup and Fortress are having their little reunion back there. Spores, I would like to. I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm enjoying like interacting with people. I'm enjoying drawing non non-disclosure, I guess, artwork, stuff that I can just do for the sake of prints or whatever, that doesn't have to be top secret. I'm enjoying interacting with all of you while I'm working. So it's been really fun, and I'd like to continue it once work picks up again, official work. We'll see what kind of time I can work in for it. I don't want to abandon it completely. I'd love to keep it going. That Monday night slot that I did either last week, I think it was last week. That Monday night slot was interesting for me, so I could see myself keeping that no matter what happens with official work going forward. But we'll see how it all shakes out, you know? You would think I would have a shrine for jazz. I do have like a mini shrine. I have a shelf over here with a few jazz items on it, and some jazz images that folks have gifted me at conventions. So it's nothing the size of what you're all talking about, but I do appreciate my jazz. So, you know, I gotta have a little section for him. I mostly have the figures that I have separated by, like I have my Gen 1s together. I have a whole bunch of classics, and, you know, then it gets a bit random because I'm not much of a completist, at least not anymore. So, but I don't have like a shrine per se to any particular character. Though if I could do any, it would be jazz, to state the obvious, I suppose. I would love to pick up at some point, speaking of expensive things, at some point I'd love to get a nice condition like Pretender Jazz and Action Master jazz to kind of add to my shrine. I'd also love a Generation 2 jazz in good condition, which I do not have. I have the, I don't know if it was Reveal the Shield or what, but there was a recent G2 Jazz repaint that I have in my display case. But I'd love a legit G2 Jazz. I would even consider keeping it in package, even though I'm not much of a mint in box person. I think that'd be a nice display piece. Yeah, I mean, I think it feels like a good thing to continue with. I mean, it seems like there's a steady amount of people that tunes in, and you know, I wasn't sure how much interest there would be for something like this, but you know, it seems like, you know, there's people tuning in every time, and you know, I've got somewhere like 100 followers or something. I think it just went over 100. So, you know, why not keep it going? All right, let's see. There's a little rectangular bit here and a triangle on top of it. I'm not really fitting in any of the, I guess most of the little tubes and wires he has going on there are kind of covered up, so that's okay. Let's get, I'm gonna have to use my pencil here because I kind of lost track of where I was here. Oh, Sunnysides, we have 2 jazzes. Wow. It's like an embarrassment of riches. Soundwave in cassettes versus Blaster in cassettes. Well, I think by sheer numbers, Soundwave has an advantage, right? I don't have a count in front of me here, but I'm pretty sure there are more Decepticon cassettes than there are Autobot cassettes, although somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But so, you know, you'd have to give Soundwave the advantage there. I mean, they fought in in Headmasters here, kind of to a draw, like they both kind of died from the fight and then were resurrected. So it is canon, if that's your sort of thing, that they fought and were so evenly matched that they both destroyed each other. You may or may not know, I'm a huge Blaster fanboy. I love Soundwave as well, so I'd be tempted to give Blaster the nod anyway. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear what you think. All right, that's good enough. I forgot we have a little 3-bit notch thing going on here on the little side pieces, which you can't really see this one. Yeah, don't you kind of feel like being a Decepticon, you'd get that typical, Soundwave isn't like super underhanded in most portrayals, but you kind of feel like he would kind of cheat to win if he had to. So I'd probably want to put that points in his court for that. But Blaster he was a total badass in Marvel continuity, so I can't quite picture him going out like a punk. But, the bad guys always have advantages like, the stereotypical things like if, one of Blaster's cassettes got, put in a compromising position where, Soundwave could be like, surrender or else, eject is going to get, we're going to kill eject here. So, the baddies always have that type of angle in their favor too. See, I kind of wound up overlapping here where I wouldn't want to, just because my sloppy pencils. It's funny with this conversation happening. I don't know if you planned this out, but the episode of Headmasters is playing right now is the one where they fight to the death. Broadcast. It didn't actually occur to me until I watched this. Like, I always thought Twin Cast was such a, I don't know, just a strange name for a character. He's Japanese only, so I figured there's something I'm not understanding being an American, but I forgot that his Japanese name was Broadcast, so the cast piece of it being in there makes sense. Okay, Broadcast, Twin Cast. I get it now. Sort of. See, that's all going to be darkened in later. Although I was initially planning on having the light source be on top of him, but it probably would have looked better if I had it coming from underneath, but that's okay. I'll save that for another one. "2014, huh? That was a ways back." All right, I think we can finish off the line work, the basic line work to Perceptor here. That'll be a nice timing for a stopping point. We'll probably got about 10 minutes left here, so that should be good timing. Gotta draw his top of his other arm in here. I like the Jaws music that they have during the Headmaster's cartoon. Maybe Skybite should be around for this. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, 0. I think the shadow being underneath him will actually wind up being a nice contrast, and I'll pretend I planned it that way from the beginning, but I'm going to have a starry background behind him here, because the buildings are Cybertron buildings, so I think that'll work out nicely, actually. I've only watched a little bit of Beast Wars here and there. It's on my list to eventually go through the whole thing. I actually own the entire first and second season. I don't know how many seasons there are, but I've seen parts of it. I've seen Code of Hero. I've seen what I think is close to the very end of the whole thing, where Megatron is floating through the Ark. Sorry about the spoilers again there. So, just by being part of the fandom and kind of absorbing knowledge, I know some of what happens and have seen some of that footage, but I haven't watched the whole thing. Thank you, Spores. I'll do what I can. Alright, I'm going to go for the thinnest degree of curve here for this. Let's see, which one did I use now? It was this one. Oops, gotta get that angle right. And we got this piece here. Whoops. I'm gonna have this thin out a little bit here. Make sure. It's hard to see over my phone. Alright, that's good. I will give it another little inner piece here. There we go. Beast Wars 2, huh? I feel like you're setting me up for something. Is that where Beast Wars Jazz comes from? Somebody, excuse me, somebody told me that Beast Wars Jazz turns into a jackrabbit. I'm not sure how I didn't know that, but that is news to me. Is there a difference between Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neo, which I've heard the name of? Sound like you just said John Cena. I don't think he was around back then. Let's see there. That'll work. You can clean that up a little later. I gotta get better placement for my camera one of these times. My camera being my phone. Oh my goodness. All right. What is Beast Wars 2 Starscream? If it's one of your favorite Starscreams, what is it? What does he turn into? I really screwed that up. I'll get all shaded out. Now, I almost never use a ruler when I'm doing the sketch phase. When I do it on paper, at least, when I do it online, sometimes I will do the handy little Photoshop trick of just put a dot on one side, hold shift, put a dot where you want the end to be, and then get your straight line, and then work around that. But usually when I'm sketching, I don't use the ruler. That's how I kind of got screwed up with the barrel of the gun over here. Because if you can see the digital pencil lines down here, I actually had the bottom of the barrel right here, even though once I used my straight edge on this part, I found that it didn't quite line up right over here. So, which is okay, because I'm actually going to have some shine going down on the bottom here, like a shadowy shine right there. In the background, I'm going to black out almost entirely and do stars there, so it'll all work out just fine. All right, so it's 3 o'clock. I'm going to end this for today. I'll give a good look at Perceptor here. I think he's coming along pretty well. I'm looking forward to kind of finishing him up later in the week. Probably try to stick to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing for now. So I'll probably do a Wednesday stream to finish up Perceptor, and if there's any extra time left, maybe we can have some fun with something else. Maybe I'll work on jazz a little bit. We'll see how it goes. But I want to thank you guys for hopping online again. It was really fun interacting with you all, and it looked like you guys had fun interacting with each other too. So this was cool. Let's keep it going. We'll do another one on Wednesday. I'll figure out the time and post it on Twitter, or you just get the notification on Twitch. And yeah, I hope to see some of you guys then. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your Monday, and yeah, a good week. Stay safe out there and be good to each other. All right. Take care.